I never cease to be amazed with what modders are coming out with these days. The mod that brought oil, gasoline engines, and a ton of new materials to create mod now brings us electricity and a couple more items that are a ton of fun. The Factory Must Grow is one of the biggest add-ons for Create mod and is basically the mod for bringing Create from the Steam age to the modern age. Sure, there are other mods that add new fuels and electricity, but as far as I know, there are none that add both and that do it just as well. In this video, I'll be going over the electricity features of this mod, as well as a few other features that I find interesting. If you want to learn about the other features of this mod, I have a video where I cover that, which I'll link in the description. Alright, let's start by having a look at how to generate power. So in the Factory Must Grow, just like in real life, power is generated by spinning a rotor within a stator. So in this mod we have connectors like you might have seen in New Age and in Crafts and Editions. So this mod also adds these cable blocks. So there's the regular cable tube and the diagonal cable block. So these are for when you want a more rigid sort of look, and you can jump on them, you can walk on them. They're blocks, they're solid blocks, whereas this wire here, you can go through it and it's just visual, though it does serve to connect the specific connectors. So in the Factory Must Grow, there's one difference from some other mods that you might be familiar with. So you see here, you always have to connect the connectors or the cable blocks to this sort of pinkish orange thing right here. So this is the connector. I guess it's supposed to represent a copper tube, copper wire or something. So you always have to connect here. If you try to connect on the sides or on top, it won't work. The power will not be transmitted. So that is one difference with the Factory Must Grow compared to other mods that also add electricity. Alright, so right now I'm spinning the rotor with the creative motor and I have it set to 71 RPM. So why 71 RPM? Well, 71 is the minimum speed as far as I can tell that it will generate electricity with. So if we look here, these motors are spinning, their output is 16 RPM. If I reduce this by just 1 down to 70, what's going to happen is these motors are going to stop spinning. So there seems to be a minimum speed. The animation will still turn, but it doesn't seem to actually power what they're connected to. If I put this back up to 71, the motors will start spinning again. And of course, if I flick this switch on this clutch right here, that's going to have the same effect. These motors are going to stop because the rotor will stop spinning. And you see it slowly slows down. So if we just stand here and watch for a while, it's going to eventually stop, which is a cool animation. I really like this feature. So it's almost stopped. And then if we flick the lever again and give it rotation, well, it's going to slowly speed back up to the speed that we're giving it input. So there's also another option for generating power, and that's with the generator. So the generator is a single block solution to generate electricity, and all we do is we apply rotation to the back like this, and we extract the power from the front. So the generator also needs to be spun at least 71 RPM. Here, I'm spinning it at 256 RPM, and it's producing 252 forge energy per tick. So the electricity in this mod and a lot of other mods, basically all the mods for Create that add electricity, do it in the form of forge energy because that's a system that already exists and it's used and it's compatible with a lot of other mods. So that's why it says FE per T. That means forge energy per tick. There's 20 ticks per second in game. So here we're sending it over here and I have the electric motor running at 131 RPM. So this is at 256 in the input, and we have 131 right here. So why 131? Well, this is what I found to be the maximum speed that a generator can support. So how did I figure that out? Well, here it says 10K on 10K, and if I increase that by just 1, it's going to start dropping. So it's actually going to start dropping on this side first because it can't exactly replenish the amount of energy that this is taking. So if I just crank this up to 256, we're going to see it drop by quite a bit. And if I bring it up to 132, well, it's still going to drop. So now it's just going back and forth between two values, but over time, that's going to drop more and more. So as you can see, it's dropping 2.48, 2.46. And if I bring that to 131, it's going to stabilize and it's even slowly going to start going up. So there's basically a ratio where this electric motor can provide a little bit over 50% of the speed that's put into it when you collect an electric motor to it. So half of the speed of input would be 128, and this is just 3 more. So here it's spinning at 131 RPM, and it's producing 5,895 stress units from 10,240 that's input into it. So it's basically, it's almost a 60% efficiency rate in terms of stress units at least. Oh, and the generator right here is basically the same thing as the alternator from Crafts and Editions. You just give it some rotation and you can extract the power from it. So if you're familiar with the alternator from Crafting Editions, then you'll know how to use the generator in the Factory Must Grow. Okay, so this next part is pretty cool. I like how you build up these generators, how the rotor and the stator go together. So if you try to place the stator blocks, they'll always appear like this. You can't do anything about that. You can't like face a different block and have it be placed differently. They'll be placed like this. So the way to build your setup is you place the rotor first, right? It doesn't have to be spinning. I have it directly set up to a creative motor, but you don't have to do that. And once you place the stators, they'll immediately take the proper orientation. So you just put them where they need to go. I can even click right here on the rotor, and you just place them and they will be put together like that. Alright, so to see that it's generating power, just look at the rotor. So here it's spooling up and we see that the energy is going up. If you look at here on the side, the stator will say it has 0 energy. Just ignore that. Just look at the rotor. So if we place the cable connector anywhere, it has to be, I guess we can place it, even if I place it up here on top. Let's say I put an electric motor right here. This will work. I have to connect it there. And we'll see this will start to spin. So you can connect them anywhere you want, and you can connect as many as you want, it seems. So yeah, so you have a lot of flexibility in how you set up your connections on your stator. So previously you had to right click and you could only get energy from here, but in the last update, that's it's more flexible and you can place your connectors anywhere on the stator. Okay, so this next part, I wanted to see a practical example of what it would look like to actually generate power. So I wanted to know how many water wheels it would take to generate enough power to spin this at 71 RPM. And the answer is 49 water wheels. So as you can see, I only have one connected here because this will kill my FPS. Right, so right now my FPS is 67, 62. When I place all the water wheels, you'll see it's going to drop to maybe like 15, 20 RPM. So right now the clutch is activated. If I deactivate the signal, you'll see it's going to overstress. This will start spinning, but that's just a display glitch, I think. So if we just go ahead and break that and we place it back on, I don't know why it starts spinning. It's overstressed, but just know that it's not actually working. I'm going to fix this stator here. So we see it's short 24,000 stress units. So each one of these is 512 stress units. So I will place 49 of these. So we can see that we're using about 25,000 stress units to spin this at 71 RPM. So I have the 71 RPM set on this rotation speed controller right here. I can just right click on it and drag it to the speed I want. If I reduce this by even 1, well then I will not be generating any power. So we'll see that this is at 0. And if I put it back up to 71, that number will start to go up. Okay, so what's happening right here? Well, these are cable hubs. So they exist in a lot of different variants. They're all the same. We'll see what they look like later. So these just allow you to send the electricity in different directions. So the power is going from the stator into this block. And actually, even if I remove this, I think it'll just take from there. Will it know to take? Actually, yeah, it looks like it because it's spinning. If I give it a redstone signal, it will stop sending the energy. Okay, so yeah, it stops. And then when I click on it again, it's going to start rotating once more. All right, so I actually don't need that cable block anymore. So I don't know if we actually ever did need that, but I just set it up like that because that's what the ponder animation looked like. So this, like a lot of other mods based on Create, if you press W in your inventory, you'll get this really cool animation that tells you how to use the block. So it's basically a built-in tutorial inside of the mod that tells you how things work. So it gives you this animation and it shows this text, and you can know how to use the mod just by looking at these. So this is what I based my design off of. I honestly just watched this and built it like it was. This blue thing here is a capacitor which stores up electricity. You can use it as a battery in case, I don't know, your power shuts off, I don't know. So that's what this is for. This is the ponder. It's a really good feature and you can learn a lot about mods just by going into this. So here we have two motors. One is set to run at 64, the other one is set to run at 16, and they are indeed running at those speeds. So what happens if I crank this one up all the way to 256? Well, it'll spin at 256 RPM. Now what if I turn this one up to 256? Will it also turn? Oh, what's happening? This one's stopping. Well, that's because there's not enough power. I'm drawing more power then can be used. So this eventually flickered out because I was drawing the power that was stored up in the stator. So now it's at 0, and for some reason it just broke the stressometer here. So I guess when things get weird, when they fluctuate too much, it breaks components. I don't know why, because you're not making something spin in the opposite direction. There's some bugs, I guess, in Create, so they don't like it when you're kind of going to the limits. Maybe it's changing too fast and it doesn't know how to handle it. Sometimes the stressometers, they become rotation sources, they glitch and they start to provide rotation. So I'm not too sure what exactly happens here. Just know that if you try to push these too far, you're gonna get some strange, unpredictable behavior. So anyway, yeah, so my FPS is pretty low. I'm gonna go ahead and just stop this. Or actually, I think I just have to break these. There we go. So let's move on to some more components. So here we have the light bulb, the neon tube, and the RGB light bulb. So these blocks do not play well with the shaders I'm currently using. That's a problem with the shaders, not with the mods. Let me go to the shaders, and I'm going to put on something else. Let's just put on BSL. I'm currently using Kappa PT. So BSL now. So we have these light bulb, neon tube, and RGB light bulb. If I go on it with a wrench and right click it, I can change the color to whatever I want. So that's pretty cool. These neon tubes, they can also pass electricity through them. So if you stack up a bunch of them, they will power each other. So let's just quickly go into nighttime and see what these look like at night. All right, pretty cool. Going to F3, we'll see that the block light is pretty high. It's 13, and then as I back away, it drops off. So these are pretty bright. And I'm just powering it with a creative motor and a generator right here. All right, so let's go back to daytime. So here I have a light set up, but wait a second, it's not very bright. And actually, it's not even glowing. So what's going on? Well, there's a concept in this mod called voltage. So other mods like Crafts and Additions, they don't have voltage. So how does voltage work? Well, I'm going to grab this voltmeter, which I can place on a block. So I can place it right here. And I can see that, oh boy, I'm generating 483 volts, and this can measure up to 500. So I think that generators can produce more, but the voltmeter only measures up to 500. So this is spinning at 71 RPM. And I only have 10 volts here. That's because I'm using this block that's called a resistor. And then the resistor lets you set the voltage. So if I put it up to 110, oh, it's going to be brighter because, more voltage, brighter light. Okay, if I reduce it, it's going to be dimmer. If I crank it all the way up, well, it's going to glow really bright. So what happens if I just connect the 483 volts directly into here? So I have 483 volts and I pass this tube right here. Well, it's going to glow really bright. And if I increase this up to 24, well, it blew up. So one thing to worry about is that you can actually give too much voltage and you can have catastrophic failures like this. So right here, it says it's giving 0 volts. I mean, that's not true because obviously we saw what happened. Let me just place this again. All right, it still says 0 for some reason, maybe because this blew up. Let's go ahead and grab another resistor. Okay, so it's too much even for the resistor. So let's just drop this down to an RPM. That's not going to cause... Okay. Whatever, just set. All right. 84 seems okay. I don't know what the actual cutoff is. Somewhere between 84 and 100, I think. Anyway, so let me just grab this cable hub, place it here, and I'll put the light bulb back on it. There we go. All right, so another way of controlling your voltage is by building a transformer, which is what I have right here. So you might be looking at my screen and you're seeing copper coil. So why does it say copper coil if this is a transformer? Well, a transformer is made out of copper coils. So you build them by placing them next to each other, and I think their tops have to be at the same height. That's how I built it anyways. So what it does is it bases the output voltage on the ratio between the two columns of copper coils. So here I have 2 copper coils and here I have 3. So if I do 3 divided by 2, that's 1.5. My output voltage will be 1.5 times the input voltage. So 30 times 1.5 gives me an output of 45 volts. And the way that you indicate which side is the output is by right-clicking the top with a wrench, and you'll get this gray band here. That will be the output. So if you click there, it doesn't work. It has to be at the top, and it has to be at the one that you want the output to come out of. So here we can take that power and we can send it wherever we want, and it'll be of that voltage. So I said earlier that there were different types of cable hubs. There's the brass, copper, steel, steel casing, and heavy cable hub. And as far as I can tell, they are just aesthetic differences, so there's no differences in terms of performance as far as I know. So the mod also adds a creative generator. If you're just trying to test something out, you can use one of these, and it seems to be able to give you as much power as you need. At the very least, it gives you a lot of power. So there's the capacitor that can store energy, can store up to 75K, and there's the accumulator, which seems to be the same thing, but just a higher tier, and that can go up to 250K. So just out of curiosity, if we go into just enough items and we look at the crafting recipes, we can get an idea of why you would build one over the other. So this capacitor only uses, well, it uses nickel ingots that the mod adds, and uses electric casings and glass panes. But the accumulator uses some things like sulfuric acid and lead, which seems to be a higher tier. Oh, and it also uses lithium ingots. So then there's also this polarizer. If we go ahead and look in just enough items and we hold shift, it says it makes magnetic ingots out of steel. Okay, so what is this? Well, let's go find a steel ingot and throw it in there. All right, so I have some steel ingots. So this, I thought that I had to put it on a conveyor belt, or I had to take a robotic arm and place it there. It's a lot simpler than that. You just take the steel ingot and you right click here, and it will polarize it and give you a polarized ingot. So just wait for this to get to 100% and you'll see that you'll get a new item out of this. So if we back up, it's gonna pop out in just a sec, and oh, we get this cool animation. So it doesn't pop out, I guess we just have to grab it. Let me get rid of this and right click, and I have this magnetic ingot. So the polarizer turns steel ingots into magnetic ingots, which we use to build probably the stator block. So if we go and we go here, I bet you, yeah, these are magnetic ingots, right? We got to build some things, electric casings, there's a bunch of things that we have to make in this mod, and that's, I'm not going to go over all the recipes. I'm just going to have a quick look just to get a bit of an idea. So you got to make aluminum, copper. So you need a lot of components to get to this level to start making electricity. So I guess it's a bit of a more mid to late game feature of the Factory Must Grow. I haven't used this in a survival world, so honestly, I don't really know. But just by looking at these recipes, that's the kind of feeling I get. So what about compatibility? How does this mod play with similar mods that also add electricity? Well, here I have a setup from Create New Age that's generating power, and I have a connector from Crafts and Additions, and it's powering this light. So we can't, it's hard to see right now, but it's on, it's using up 1 forge energy per tick. That works. But if I connect it to something from the Factory Must Grow, well, it's not working. This light is not on. Despite this generating enough power, it's working with the light from Crafts and Additions. Why is it not working on this light bulb? Well, the answer is that there's no voltage. These other mods don't know about voltage. The Factory Must Grow adds voltage, but the other mods, even if they have forge energy, if they have electricity, they don't know how to deal with the voltage. So to get around that, there's this block called the converter, and what that does is it adds voltage to the forge energy that's produced by other mods. So we place it always above the source, and here we can see that this part that's coming out of the side of the source, it's not working. We can't power this light bulb no matter how high we put the voltage, but the connector that's coming out of the top of the converter, that will work. That will provide a voltage. So here it's providing 255 volts, and that's with a rotation of 64 RPM. And if I crank that up, well, it's going to give us a higher, no, it won't give us a higher voltage. So it just gives us 255 volts, no matter what it seems. If I crank this all the way to 256, just to be sure, it's probably going to be the same amount. Right, so the converter always gives us 255 volts, and then we can use copper coils to build a transformer, or we can just use a resistor to play with the voltage. And of course, this also works with the alternator from Crafts and Additions. You just put the converter on top the same way, and you use the connectors from the Factory Must Grow to connect it to the electric motor or whatever else you want from that mod. Now, just be sure to use the cable connectors from the Factory Must Grow, otherwise it will not work. So we can also use a power source from the Factory Must Grow and connect it to components from other mods. So I'm using this electric motor from Create Crafts and Additions and this basic motor from Create New Age. So there's no extra steps required when you're going from the Factory Must Grow to these other mods, because these mods don't care about voltage. The voltage is there in the cable, but it does not do anything to these components. Just be sure to always use the cable connector from the Factory Must Grow. Even if it's a component from another mod, you need to use this connector, otherwise it won't work. So if I go ahead and place these connectors from Create New Age, we'll see that they do not transmit the power. So this is not spinning, this is even correctly set to pull, and this one to push, so other connectors will not work. It has to be the connectors from the Factory Must Grow. So another addition to this mod is some new weapons. So in base create mod, we have the potato cannon, which allows us to fire potatoes from our inventory. So create the Factory Must Grow adds 2 new potato cannons. They add the quad potato cannon, which shoots 4 potatoes, and the advanced potato cannon, which shoots out napalm potatoes. So let's give ourselves some new targets to test out these weapons. Alright, so the quad potato launcher is shooting out 4 potatoes, and the damage doesn't stack. So it doesn't deal 4 times as much damage, but it can reach 4 times as many targets if you're lucky. So that's how the quad potato cannon works. Let's have a look at the advanced potato cannon. So let's stand back a little bit and shoot the clump right here. Wow, that is explosive. So the advanced potato cannon allows you to shoot napalm potatoes, which are just totally destructive. They explode. Definitely a lot of fun. So the next thing that I want to show you guys is the flamethrower. So the flamethrower simply takes some flammable liquids and allows you to shoot it out like this. So the liquids are a little bit different. So there's napalm, which is this one right here. So this shoots pretty far away. Then we have others, which they don't shoot quite as far. So napalm is the main one that's associated with the flamethrower. It runs out pretty quickly, but it shoots really far. So if I take this one, it's going to drain a lot slower. And if I just finish this one off, I'll show you how to reload it. So now it's empty. I just right click a fluid tank with it and it'll fill it up. So if this was a regular fluid tank, it would consume the liquid. This being creative, it'll keep the liquid in the tank. So I can just shoot this, and when I run out, I just right click on the fluid tank. So I went ahead and I tried a bunch of fluids to see what would work and what wouldn't. So obviously things like napalm work, gasoline, diesel, but also kerosene and naphtha. Things like lubrication oil does not work, neither does heavy oil. I guess those are too heavy to burn. Crude does not work. I tried some liquids from some other mods as well. So I tried seed oil and biofuel from Crafts and Additions. That did not work. Interestingly, molten slag works. So if I right click this, it'll work. Molten steel does not work, and lava does not work. What's cool about molten slag is it's really heavy and it doesn't shoot far, but I get the feeling that it's more compact, more concentrated. I don't know if it deals more damage or not. We can have a look later. So that's about it. So I think these fuels all behave pretty much the same. So if I just grab this one and compare it to this, this one might shoot it further. It might be the same. So each fuel has a different behavior. So napalm will go pretty far, and if I grab another one, it won't go quite as far. And molten slag does not go very far at all, but it's the most concentrated, it looks like. I'm not sure if it deals more damage, but we can check that out in just a bit. So basically you have napalm here, which goes the furthest. You have molten slag, which barely goes far at all. Makes sense. It's heavy metal leftovers, so it's very heavy, so it won't go very far. But then you have diesel, gasoline, kerosene, and naphtha, and those are all kind of in the middle. So let's give ourselves some targets to see how effective the flamethrower is. So let's start with napalm. So right off the bat, it doesn't deal too much damage. Most of the damage seems to be the fire damage. If I change it up a little bit, I think we'll have a similar effect. So all these flamethrowers, all these fuels in the middle, they have pretty much the same result. Just the molten slag one will be a bit shorter range. And yeah, the initial damage doesn't seem very high. I think maybe even it's only the fire that's damaging them. So it is a flamethrower after all, so it would make sense that it's not the impact that deals the damage, but rather just the flames. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you'd like to see more, then please consider subscribing and activating notifications. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support me there. Thank you for watching.